It was 2 in the morning when Marcus realized he had forgotten what it felt like to actually finish something. He sat at his desk, eyes dry, shoulders tight, surrounded by the soft blue glow of 3 open screens. On the first screen, a half-finished design. On the second, 47 unread emails. On the third, a social media feed scrolling by itself like a river that never stopped moving. He had been at his desk for 11 hours, and he had nothing to show for it. Marcus was 33 years old. He worked for a company that built apps that millions of people opened the moment they woke up, apps designed to feel impossible to close. He was good at his job. He had been good at his job for years. But lately, something had shifted in a way he could not name. He was always working, he was always connected, he was always behind. He picked up his phone, checked his messages, checked the news, checked his email again, even though he had checked it 4 minutes ago. He set the phone down, then he picked it up again. He didn't even notice he had done it. His partner, Lena, had said something to him 2 nights before. She had said it quietly, the way people say things when they have already said them too many times. She had said, "Marcus, I'm right here, but you're never here with me." He had looked up from his phone. He had smiled. He had said, "I know, I'm sorry. Just give me 5 minutes." She had nodded. She had turned back to her book. But they both knew those 5 minutes would become 20, then an hour. Then the night would be over, and in the morning, the same cycle would begin again. Marcus stared at the unfinished design on his screen now. His manager had given him 3 weeks to complete it, the most important project of his career. A new feature for the app that could change everything for the company. 3 weeks. And he had spent the first week doing exactly what he always did, answering emails, joining calls that could have been messages, scrolling through feeds that filled with new content the moment he reached the bottom, clicking on articles he never finished, watching videos that led to other videos, checking, refreshing, responding, reacting, an endless cycle of motion that felt like work but produced almost nothing real. He closed his laptop. He sat in the silence for a long moment, and for the first time in months, a very honest question rose up inside him. What am I actually doing with my time? The next morning, Marcus came into the office earlier than usual. The building was quiet. The open-plan workspace, normally full of noise and movement, was still and cool. He sat down. He opened his laptop. His email loaded automatically, as it always did. His phone buzzed. A notification, then another, then 3 more in quick succession. He almost reached for it. Instead, he stopped. He sat there for a moment, hand suspended in the air, thinking about what Lena had said. Thinking about the 11 hours at his desk that had produced almost nothing he was proud of. Then he heard a voice. "You look like a man fighting with himself." Marcus turned. At the desk beside him, a desk he had never seen anyone sit at, was an older man, 60s maybe, calm face, white hair, neatly cut. He was looking at Marcus with mild curiosity, the way someone looks at a puzzle they have seen before. "I've seen that expression," the man said. "It belongs to someone who knows they should be working, but cannot seem to start. So instead they sit there, pulled in 4 directions at once." He smiled gently. "Am I wrong?" I'm Marcus, Marcus said. Daniel, the man said simply. Then he turned back to his own screen. A single document, nothing else open, and began working with a quiet focus that Marcus found almost unsettling. No notifications lighting up, no second tabs open, no phone on his desk, just the document, just the work. Marcus turned back to his own screen, to his 49 unread emails, his open social media tab, his buzzing phone, and felt something he hadn't felt in a while. Embarrassed. Not at Daniel, at himself. They had lunch together that day. It happened naturally. Marcus was heading to the small kitchen, and Daniel was already there making tea, and somehow they ended up sitting across from each other. Marcus learned that Daniel had been brought in as a consultant, looking at how the company's people spent their time. "And what have you found?" Marcus asked. Daniel looked at him steadily. "That almost everyone here is very, very busy," he said, "and almost no one is making time for the thing that actually matters most." "Tell me about your day," Daniel said. "From this morning. What have you done?" Marcus thought back. 12 emails answered. A 30-minute call about a project he wasn't even part of. Twice through the news feed. A competitor's app, scrolled through without purpose. Half an article about design trends he would never finish reading. Then his actual project. The file had been open for maybe 8 minutes before a notification pulled him away. He told Daniel all of it. Daniel listened without expression. "How much of that time was on your actual project?" he asked. Marcus calculated quietly. 8 minutes, maybe 10. They sat in silence for a moment. "Here is the problem," Daniel said finally, "and it is not unique to you. We live in a world that is designed to pull your attention in every direction, except the one that matters most. Your email wants your attention. Your phone wants it. The news wants it. Social feeds want it. These things are built by very clever people to feel urgent, to feel necessary, to feel impossible to ignore." He paused. "But none of them know what your most important work is. None of them care about your project. They just want your eyes, your clicks, your minutes." Marcus was quiet. "So, what do you do?" he asked. Daniel looked at him calmly. "You choose," he said, "every day, before the world has a chance to choose for you." That evening, Marcus sat at his desk at home with a paper notebook in front of him, a real one that Lena had given him as a birthday gift and he had never used. He opened it to the first page. Daniel had given him one instruction, not a complicated system, not a long method to memorize. Just a single question to answer at the start of each day. What is the one thing, just one, that I most want to make real today? Not the most urgent thing, not the thing other people needed from him, not the email that had arrived at 8 in the morning demanding a reply, the thing that, if he did only one thing today, he would feel good about. The thing that, if the day ended and it was done, he could honestly say the day had mattered. He wrote, "Design the core interaction flow for the new feature." Then he stared at it. He was used to to-do lists with 30 items. He was used to feeling productive by the sheer weight and length of his task list. But Daniel had said something that stayed with him. A long list of tasks makes you feel busy. Choosing one important thing makes you feel focused. He wrote those words down too. Then Daniel had asked him something unexpected. "When you think about this one thing, does it feel urgent, like something you would regret not doing?" Does it feel joyful, like something you are excited to create? Or does it feel deeply satisfying, something you would be proud of at the end of the day? Marcus thought about the project, about the moment he had first understood what this new feature could be, the genuine excitement he had felt then before the noise buried it completely. Joy, he thought. That's what it was once. I want to find it again. Lena walked into the room. She saw him, actually saw him, no phone in hand, no screens open, and paused. What are you doing? She asked. Planning tomorrow, he said. She looked at the notebook. On paper? On paper, he confirmed. She sat down beside him and looked at what he had written. One thing. Good, she said softly. She put her hand on his arm, just for a moment, like a small, quiet reminder that she was still there. The next morning, Marcus's alarm went off at 6. His phone was on the other side of the room. He had put it there the night before, deliberately. He had to stand up to turn the alarm off. And standing there in the half-dark of early morning, phone in hand, he made a decision. He did not check anything. Not email, not the news, not his messages. He set the phone face down on the dresser and went to make coffee. It felt strange. Like he was forgetting something important, like something somewhere must be on fire, but nothing was on fire. No emergency had arrived. The world was continuing perfectly well without him refreshing it every 3 minutes. He sat with his coffee in the quiet morning light and let himself think about his one thing. Not anxiously, just gently. The design problem turned slowly in his mind. He thought about users, real people opening an app for the first time, encountering something new. What would they feel? What would make them pause and look again? Feel that something had been made just for them? In those quiet 20 minutes, before a single screen was open, he had more ideas than he had gathered in the entire previous week. Then he opened his calendar. He had never done this before. Not like this. He found the next 3 hours and he blocked them. Not for a meeting, not for a call. For his one thing. He typed a name into that block time. Design work. Do not disturb. Then he looked at the rest of his schedule and found 2 meetings that had nothing to do with his project. He wrote brief, honest messages declining both of them. Not rudely, just directly. I won't be able to join this one. I'm protecting focus time for my main project. Thanks for understanding. His hand hesitated before pressing send on each message. He was not used to saying no. He was not used to treating his time as though it actually belonged to him. He pressed send. Nothing terrible happened. At his desk, Marcus did something that felt almost revolutionary. He closed his email. He turned off all notifications on his phone. He put the phone in his desk drawer. He opened his design software. Just that. Nothing else on the screen. And he began. For the first hour, it was hard. His hands kept moving toward where his phone should be. His eyes kept flicking to the corner of the screen where notifications usually appeared. His mind kept offering small escape routes. Maybe just quickly check, just for 1 second, just in case. He held still. He breathed. He returned to the work. And then, slowly, the way a fire needs patience before it truly catches, something shifted inside him. He stopped thinking about his phone. He stopped wondering what might be happening elsewhere. The room around him seemed to shrink until there was only him and the design, and the work began to flow in a way it hadn't flowed in a very long time. Hours passed without his noticing. When he finally looked up, the office was full of people who had arrived while he wasn't watching. It was nearly noon. He looked at what was on his screen. It was good. Not finished, but genuinely, honestly good. He felt something unfamiliar, something quiet, something that sat lower and steadier than the frantic energy of trying to keep up. Satisfied. Daniel was at the coffee machine. It worked, Marcus said. He could hear the surprise in his own voice. Daniel listened as Marcus described the morning, the blocked calendar, the phone in the drawer, the 3 hours of uninterrupted work. You experienced something today that most people rarely feel anymore, Daniel said. He poured his coffee slowly. Full attention on one thing for long enough to actually make something real. We might call it laser focus, the kind of deep, single-pointed attention that produces real work, real ideas, real progress. He looked at Marcus. Most people spend their days in a kind of shallow mode, always in motion, never going deep, always responding, never creating. They feel genuinely busy, and they are busy, but at the end of the day, the most important thing hasn't moved. Marcus thought about his previous week. 11 hours at a desk, almost nothing made. The problem, Daniel continued, is that the world around you is not designed for this. Your phone, your apps, they are not neutral tools, Marcus. They're designed to pull you back in. Social media, news, email, they all share one thing in common. They never end. You scroll to the bottom and they fill again. You answer the last email and 3 more arrive. You finish the news and new news appears. He set down his cup. We could call these infinity pools, like a swimming pool that never runs out of water. You dip in for 1 minute, and when you surface, an hour is gone. Marcus thought about how many times a day he opened those pools. 20 times maybe. 40. He had never counted. He had never even thought to count. You don't need to destroy them, Daniel said. You simply decide when you go in, instead of them deciding for you. That night, Marcus picked up his phone and looked at it honestly. Perhaps for the first time. He scrolled through his apps, social media, news, email, shopping, video, another social platform, another news aggregator, more social media. He thought about how many times each day he opened these, how many hours they quietly collected from him without ever asking permission. He began making changes. Slowly, methodically. He moved the social media apps off his home screen, not deleted, but tucked away, out of sight, requiring deliberate effort to reach. He turned off every notification except calls from Lena and direct messages from his small core team. He moved his email to the very last page of his apps, so reaching it required intention rather than reflex. He made it harder to fall in. Lena watched from the sofa. You're redesigning your phone, she said. Moving the things that take me away from the things that matter, he said. He looked up at her. Things like you. She laughed. A small surprise sound. Did someone send back a better version of you today? Something like that, he said. And for the first time in weeks, they spent the rest of the evening together with no screens between them. Just 2 people, a lamp, a quiet room. Marcus couldn't remember the last time an evening had felt this easy. The days that followed were not perfect. On the 3rd day, his manager sent an urgent email at 8 in the morning. Marcus glimpsed it by accident when he unlocked his phone to check the time and spent the next 40 minutes worrying about it rather than working. On the fifth day, a colleague stopped by his desk 3 times with questions that had nothing to do with his project. Each time, Marcus was polite. Each time, he lost the thread of his thinking and had to find his way back. On the seventh day, he surrendered. Just for a moment, he told himself. Just a quick look at social media during lunch. When he finally put the phone down and looked at the clock, 45 minutes had gone. He sat with that feeling. Not guilt, exactly. Something clearer. A kind of honest observation. That is how it works. You step in for a moment and a tunnel opens, and before you surface, an hour is gone, he told Daniel. Daniel said simply, "Good." Marcus blinked. "Good?" "Now you know," Daniel said. "You've watched it happen in real time to yourself, while fully aware it was happening. Most people are pulled in without ever seeing the mechanism." "You saw it. That awareness is not nothing, Marcus. That is the beginning of real change." He paused. There is no perfect day. The pull toward distraction never disappears completely. What changes is your awareness of it, and your ability, each time you notice it, to simply return. Return to what matters. Simple words. And the hardest thing Marcus had ever tried to do consistently. In the second week, Marcus noticed something new. He was tired. But not the good tired that comes from working hard. A different kind. The tired of someone whose body had been quietly neglected while his mind ran in circles. He hadn't exercised in weeks. He was eating fast, distracted lunches at his desk, whatever was close and easy. He was sleeping 6 hours, sometimes less, waking up before his alarm with his thoughts already racing before his body had even arrived at the day. He brought this to Daniel. Daniel set down his tea and looked at him steadily. "Your focus is not only a mental experience," he said. "It is a whole body one. When you sleep well, truly well, your mind is sharper the next day. When you move your body, even briefly, your thinking opens up. When you eat something that genuinely feeds you, your energy holds longer and more steadily. When you give yourself moments of real quiet, not just the absence of work, but genuine stillness, your mind can recover and reset." He looked at Marcus evenly. "You have been trying to improve your attention from the neck up, but the rest of you is part of this too." That evening, Marcus went for a run. He hadn't run in months. He left his phone at home. He went out into the late afternoon light and simply moved his body through the world. His mind was loud at first, anxious, full of half-finished thoughts and project worries and lists that never stopped. But as his body settled into its rhythm, the noise began to quiet. And into that quiet, something arrived that surprised him. Clarity. A design problem he had been wrestling with for 3 days simply appeared, whole and clean and obvious, like something that had been waiting just behind the noise all along. He ran faster, almost by instinct. He held the idea carefully, like a flame cupped against wind, all the way home. He wrote it down before he even took off his shoes. And he understood something in that moment that no amount of sitting at his desk had shown him. The best ideas don't always arrive at a desk. That night, he went to bed an hour earlier than usual. He set his phone to charge in the hallway instead of beside him on the nightstand. He lay in the dark, and he did nothing except rest. He slept for 8 hours. He woke feeling like a different person. Not because everything had changed, but because his mind, finally given genuine rest, felt clean, sharp, ready in a way it hadn't been in a long time. He made coffee, sat with his notebook, chose his one thing. When he arrived at his desk an hour later, the work came easily, with a smoothness that no amount of caffeine or effort from the previous week had produced. He sat there working, and a quiet thought arrived. I was making myself exhausted in the name of being productive, and I was producing less because of it. There was a moment, late in the second week, when Marcus sat in a small coffee shop on a rainy afternoon, not working, not checking his phone, just sitting. Rain made a soft, steady sound against the window. People moved past outside, bent under umbrellas, unhurried. A woman at the next table read a book, turning pages slowly. A child in the corner was drawing something, his small tongue pressed between his lips in concentration. Marcus watched all of it, and he felt something he had almost forgotten the word for: present. Not anxious about what he hadn't yet finished, not planning what came next, not somewhere between this moment and the next task, which was where he had been living for months. Just here. Just now. He thought about how much of his life had been spent somewhere else. Half present at dinner while his mind was still at his desk. Half present at his desk while his eyes moved toward his phone. Always arriving somewhere while already mentally leaving. Watching his own life from a slight distance through the thin glass of distraction. And sitting there in the coffee shop with rain on the glass and strangers moving through their ordinary afternoon, a question arrived inside him quietly, without warning. The kind of question that, once it appears, cannot be unasked. If I never change this, if I spend the rest of my life this way, always half somewhere else, what will I have missed? The answer came without drama, without a grand feeling. Just a small, clear, certain voice. Everything that actually matters. In the third week, there was a shape to Marcus's days that hadn't existed before. Not a rigid shape, not a perfect one, but a structure he had chosen himself rather than one that had been chosen for him by whoever happened to reach him first. He chose his one important thing each morning before opening anything else. He worked on it first, in the quietest hours, before the world had time to fill his mind with its own demands. He checked his email twice a day, once at midday, once in the late afternoon, instead of continuously. He left his phone in his bag during meetings. He walked each day, even if only for 20 minutes. And each evening, he sat with his notebook. Daniel had suggested this last piece. At the end of each day, not a long process, just a few quiet minutes, Marcus asked himself 3 simple questions. What went well today? What didn't? What will I do differently tomorrow? He had been skeptical at first. It seemed too small, too slow, too ordinary to matter. But those few minutes began to teach him things he couldn't have learned any other way. He was learning from his own days, seeing patterns he had never noticed before. Which kinds of mornings produced his best work? Which kinds of interruptions cost him the most time? Which habits genuinely helped, and which ones only felt like they helped? Quietly, without drama, without a perfect system or a complicated plan, he was becoming better at the art of his own days. The project was nearly complete. He could feel the shape of it, not in a frantic, desperate way, but in the way that good work feels when it is almost done. Whole, real, earned. He sat looking at his designs across the screen. 12 days of real, focused work. Not perfect work, but work that carried something of himself inside it. Attention, care, intention, thought. He remembered the night he had sat at his desk for 11 hours and produced almost nothing. He remembered the first morning. Phone in the drawer, 3 hours of uninterrupted work, the feeling of genuine, surprising flight. He thought about the infinity pools, still there, still full, still finding ways to be irresistible. He thought about all the minutes, all the hours, all the pieces of his own attention he had handed to things that never even noticed he was there. And then he thought about what those hours could be when chosen deliberately. They could be this work, alive with real thought and genuine craft. They could be Lena, fully there beside him without a screen between them. They could be a run in the late afternoon light, a clean idea arriving from somewhere under the noise. They could be a notebook and a question, and a few minutes of honest looking at his own day. Small things, but chosen things. And chosen things, Marcus was learning, felt entirely different from accidental ones. He presented the project on a Thursday morning. The room was quiet when he finished, the kind of quiet that happens just before something moves. Then his manager nodded, slowly at first, then with certainty. "This is it," she said. "This is exactly what we needed." Marcus felt something that was quieter than pride, something that sat deeper. The feeling of having been fully present for something important, of not having missed it while looking somewhere else. He walked out of the building and stood in the morning air for a moment. He thought about calling Lena. Then he had a better idea. He went home. Lena was there. She worked from home on Thursdays. She looked up, surprised when he came through the door. "You're back early," she said. "Finished," he said. "Presented." They loved it. She stood. She crossed the room and hugged him. A real hug, warm and full and unhurried. Not the quick, distracted ones they had been exchanging for months. He held her tightly. "Marcus," she said, her voice low, "you've been different lately. Really different." "I know," he said. "What happened?" He thought for a long moment. He thought about Daniel, about the notebook, about the phone in the drawer, about the infinity pools. Still present, still full, but no longer in command. About the runs, the sleep, the rainy afternoon in the coffee shop, the question that had no comfortable answer. "I remembered what my time was actually for," he said. Lena pulled back to look at him. "And what is it for?" He looked at her, fully, the way he had learned to look at things again, completely, without one eye already somewhere else. "Things like this," he said. "Things like right now." That evening, Marcus sat with his notebook one last time. He wrote what went well today. He thought about how to answer honestly. Not everything had been smooth. Not everything had been easy. There were still days when the old habits pulled at him, still mornings when choosing the one important thing felt harder than it should. Still moments when he reached for his phone automatically and had to catch himself. Pause, return. The pull never fully went away. He understood now that it never would. But something essential had changed. He was no longer a passenger in his own days, no longer carried forward by whatever arrived first in the morning, whichever email was most urgent, whichever notification most demanding, whichever pool was fullest and most ready to swallow the next hour without asking. He was choosing now, each morning, one thing, real, important, his own, then protecting that choice, then reflecting on how it went, then sleeping well and beginning again. It was not complicated. It was not a perfect system, and he would not always follow it perfectly. It was simply the daily habit of returning to one honest question: what matters most right now to me? And then treating the answer as though it was worth something. He closed the notebook. He turned off his laptop. He went to sit beside Lena, who was reading. She shifted to give him room. He settled beside her, and he was simply there, fully, quietly there, with nothing pulling him away. Outside, the city moved and buzzed and lit itself up. The feeds filled. The notifications fired into the night. The infinity pools rose and fell and rose again, as they always would, always offering more, always finding new ways to feel impossible to resist. But in that quiet room, with the lamplight warm and Lena close and the day done, in a way he could honestly feel good about, Marcus was exactly where he was supposed to be. Not catching up, not falling behind, not half present in the space between this moment and the next unfinished task. Just here, just now, just alive. And maybe that is what it means to make time. Not to find hidden hours somewhere, not to build a perfect schedule and never break it. Not to become someone who is never distracted, never loses focus, never forgets, but to wake up each morning and ask clearly and with full honesty, what matters most to me today? And then while slowly, imperfectly, again and again and again, to choose it